So, would you like to introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, and how you identify as a student at UCLA?
Okay. My name is Kassi. How do I identify as a student? I am what I always tell people is, I am a fourth year anthropology major. I am a non-traditional age student, so this is like my second life that I'm starting over. I'm studying anthropology. Yeah, that's my identity that like I give to other people, but inside like there's just a lot more. Like there's just a lot to everyone's life, so
Definitely summing up one person and like labels is a very complex thing to do.
Yeah, it's like a lot to think of.
Yeah, and it doesn't really get one person. How has your, I guess, personal identities and like your experiences shaped your experience at UCLA, and how has like your approach at UCLA like different?
Yeah, the thing that feels different to me is feeling like I'm older than a lot of people that I'm in class with, and they don't. Not that it necessarily shows. So sometimes I think it does, but I'm like, when I don't know how to do something, I'm like, oh my God, I'm starting to sound like my parents. Like I can't figure out this thing on the computer. What? Even though I grew up in the generation that like had computers, but so I'm 39. And it is kind of weird because even though everyone's an adult here and we can all still like talk and use the same slang and stuff, there are milestones in my life that I've gone through that some of the other people that I'm talking to, like my classmates, haven't yet, and can't really wrap their heads around yet. Like just having worked for so many years in the first place is like a big one. In some ways that makes my academic life easier because I've already gone through like having to learn time management and all these strange expectations, and in a way academics is easier than it was the first time I tried to go to college because I've already adulted all these years. But it is a little strange when talking to someone else about it, and usually people are surprised because they like think I'm younger.
Incredible. How, because of your almost like because of like your like how you've said that like sometimes it's like even though you're speaking like the same language and they're like we're all adults, there's still difference and a disconnect there. How has it been finding a community on campus, and have you found it?
Not really for that. I mean, I know there's like a non-traditional age students group like on Facebook, but it doesn't seem very active. Like I mostly talk with like other transfer students, or I connect in the Bruin Guardian Scholars, which is the former foster youth, which I was also in kinship care when I was younger. So I was actually kind of surprised I could be a part of that because I'm so much older, and I was like so excited. Don't age out of that program, but. As far as just like other like groups for students who maybe feel like I do about not being young and being in college, it hasn't been easy to find something. I will find individual people like me who you just don't know, especially with all of us having masks on. You just don't know until you talk to them. But yeah, it still just feels weird because college is mostly a place for young people. That's who everybody expects to be here.
What has your experience been like finding, since you have multitudes, finding a nice intersectional space where you feel comfortable?
Yeah, that has also been difficult because I transferred here during the Zoom 2020 year. So there wasn't a lot of on-campus space that I really had access to in the first place. So this quarter is my first time even here. So just learning the campus has been like my main thing I've focused on rather than finding places where I can like belong. But I think that that's slowly coming. Like for instance, when there are events offered, BGS had like a study jam, and that was pretty cool because there are all different kinds of people there, people from all different, like people who are, working students, people who are not, people who just starting college, like young, and people, like there was just everyone there, and that was really cool. And that was kind of the first time that I was in a group on campus where it was obvious that we all came from different backgrounds, but we were still all like sort of doing the same thing. And it was really cool to have all the different conversations in there. So I would say probably things that go on inside the Student Activity Center. It's probably a great intersectional space, because I try to walk by there now pretty often and I'll find something, and it's just like for everyone. So one place where it's like, you can tell everybody just comes from something, different places, different walks of life.
Incredible. You mentioned BGS a few times. Mm-hmm. How has the former foster youth community at UCLA been important to you, and what does it mean to that community?
Oh my gosh, it has been, like I'm almost gonna cry just thinking about it. I did not expect that, hold on. Okay, sorry. It was like a good cry, not a bad cry. Being a former foster youth was not something that it's not something that I keep in the front of my mind. Like over time, it's just something you sort of like, you went through it, but you don't really show it to other people. So weird to like say this out loud. So when I actually applied for university, that's one of the questions on there, if you're a former foster youth. And I actually didn't know if I should check it because, I'm older, and I'm like, well, it says former. But also, like, does it count like I'm not actually, like I wasn't born in California? Like, actually to like Google, like, do I check yes on FAFSA on this? Do I? I know that's loud. So I did, and I'm so glad that I did, because that's what started the Bruin Guardian scholars like contacting me, like sending me the emails, like join this group, and I had to ask them, like, is there an age limit? Because a lot of scholarships and grants and programs for former foster youth are like up to age 26. And I thought, well, since I'm an adult, maybe I don't count, maybe I don't need help anymore. But the truth is, even when you're an older adult, most people like still can call their parents or still can call their families and ask for help or go move back home, and I've like never had that option. So it was really cool to I don't know, it just feels like, like I still matter. Like I can still get help. And it was strange because I never like officially, like I never went through the system as far as like foster homes. I was like in kinship care, which means you have family members that adopt you. And I lived with several different family members, which is still a different family in a different home than like your family. So even though it's family, it's kind of not family at the same time. So I just never thought I counted for any of this stuff. So it was really cool because I've been like building my life like by myself. So it was really helpful over the pandemic to like be assigned a social worker, which is something like I never did. I never sat and talked to a social worker. I never did any of that stuff, and it felt strange at first. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm not a kid. I shouldn't have to do this, but it was actually really nice, especially during like COVID quarantine, like just having a real person to sit there and talk to and work through things, and it helped a lot. Like I really think that that's really what helped me get through that Zoom year, and just the resources of like knowing I could get food. Like I'd lost my job, like most people in America. Paying for college, like getting the help, super cool, super great. Like I love BGS. Anyone that I know, and I know like other people who have gone through things like this, they probably know that somehow you do find other people like you. Like, I don't know, something about like you attract that. It's like through my life, I've made a lot of friends that we were friends, and then later we both find out like, oh wait, like you don't have a mom either, or like you're like, oh, I didn't know this, but somehow you connect. So I definitely recommend to any of my other friends that are like thinking about returning to school. And there's a lot of us from my generation that didn't finish school the first time. So I'm always like, make sure, you sign up for any former foster groups. Make sure you sign up for that. It is for you too, because it's just like life-changing just to have the support.
So how did you end up at UCLA, like your journey up until now, and what did you do previous to coming here?
Yeah, I don't know whether to give you the long version or the short version. Okay, so when I first went to college, I had been living with my oldest sister, and she was getting married, so I was just, okay, boom, you're an adult, you're 18, like, here, good luck. My sisters were older than me, but not that much older, so it's like they were just learning how to be adults. They couldn't really be much of a resource other than like me calling and venting. So the first time I went to college, I went to culinary school because I thought it would be really cool to have a job where I don't have to worry about like getting food. Like if I work in a restaurant or work in a grocery store, I'm always going to be fed. And then I also just really love to cook. Like my dad was a really excellent cook, and like food is one of the ways I connected with a lot of different families and like learned things about people. So I went to culinary school. I actually went to a community college so I could still get a degree like in hotel management or something. So I was taking like my basics, and I went to culinary school. I got a job at Whole Foods, and eventually it just it's hard. And I know it's hard for everybody, not just, people who are on their own. I think it's probably hard for all young people to come out of the high school experience and be an adult for the first time and go to college and work, at the same time, and like just learn how to be an adult while you're also literally sitting in class learning. So, like I don't think I could handle it at that age. And I just eventually stopped going to class because I was like, oh, well, I have a job. It's fine. I'll go back. And like, I never did. Plus back then, this was like the year 2000. So, eventually like I lived in Houston, Enron happened, and then the World Trade Center thing happened, and then the recession happened. So it just didn't seem like college was important anymore. It just kind of seemed like having a job was the only thing that was important. So a lot of people didn't have jobs, and I did. And I was like hiring people who, I had worked my way up to a manager, and I was hiring people who had master's degrees and PhDs who no longer had jobs because, the stock market went bust, and people were like financial analysts and things, and they were trying to get a job in a grocery store cooking food. And like sitting there making these decisions, like, is this person going to quit because they've never done this kind of work, or do I just be nice enough to give everyone a job? Like it just didn't seem like college was important. It just seemed like I made it. I'm done. I'm not, I'm able to pay for myself during a recession. This is all I have to do. But, after a few years of working in food and food retail, you get tired of the expectation of like being available 24 hours a day. Like you just, if you're off, it doesn't mean you're not available, and you could be scheduled till 4 a.m. and have to come in at 8 a.m. Like that kind of, like after a while, it gets on you, and having to be the person make the schedule and do that to other people and try to convince them it's in their best interest. Like I started to feel like I'm like exploiting people. And I was just sitting in one manager meeting, and I thought, I never did finish that college degree, and maybe I can do more than just like make schedules for a restaurant. Like that doesn't take much. Like there's more I can do in life, and I can examine food in a way that's not like literally just making it like for sale. So I thought about how I originally wanted to go to school for archaeology, because growing up I always wanted to be Indiana Jones. And I also thought about how I love to learn about like food culturally, and so I thought, anthropology would be super cool. So I went to, first of all, I just started looking up things, because I know like I love, spooky stuff. I love CSI type stuff, and I love history, and I love, culture. So I was just looking up, and I found that you could volunteer at the La Brea tar pits, like cleaning fossils. So I signed up for that, but I ended up volunteering at the Natural History Museum. And I was like, talking to, you actually work with scientists and things. And I was like, whoa, these are my people. Like, I felt like I really fit in there. And it was super cool. So I signed up for one summer class at community college to see if I could handle working, going to school. And I loved it, and it was great. And so I was just like, all right, signing up for 4 classes now. And I went in, and they showed me the paper to transfer to university, because my credits were old, so I knew I had to kind of start over from scratch. So they're like, here's what you need to, here are the degrees we offer that you're guaranteed to transfer into, California State or UCLA. So I did that plan. And then I was going to go to California State, because in my head, UCLA was like some prestigious school that was like unaffordable, and like you had to be like super smart. Not that I wasn't smart, but still, like. And so I just thought, oh, it's Cal State, whatever. And then I started going to, they have outreach. I went to West Los Angeles College, and they have a lot of outreach. They had like counselors that come and try to recruit you. So I actually went to like the different colleges, and actually California State didn't have much. They would just come to campus and be like, yeah, apply if you want. USC takes you on a tour, and UCLA is like, we promise you can afford things if you try, like. And so I applied just thinking, I'm gonna apply just to see if I get in, but I'm just gonna go to the place that like gives me a better break financially. And actually it was UCLA that did. So that's where I ended up going. Plus I felt like, wow, I got into this school that people think is like, a prestigious school. It's really cool.
How has this previous, I guess like you kind of talked about this, but I guess like expand on it more. Like how does this previous experience affect your perspective, interest, in studies at UCLA? Like how's that, like your past in culinary stuff affect what your study and what you wanted?
Yeah, so I was kind of like getting away from culinary or thinking of examining in a different way. But now it's like, I took like a history of food in the Atlantic world. I took an anthropology, and it's like pulling at me, like, oh, you still love cooking. So now I've just started to think of ways I can incorporate like my past life with what I want to study. But the thing that's affected me the most is just like, it's difficult, but it's not that difficult to get things done, because I'm already used to like multiple priorities coming at me at the same time just from work. And I also have a lot of experience I can reflect on. So it's really easy for me to go to discussions and like reflect on something and actually talk. I know a lot of people are like really quiet in them. And to write papers just because like I've been through a lot of life, So that in a way makes it easier, and it kind of makes it to where I can, in some ways it makes it easier, in some ways it makes it harder to narrow down what I actually want to do after this. Because it's like all of a sudden everything can become interesting. It's like, oh, wait, this relates too, and so does this. Oh, great, now what do I do?
But the last closing question is, what do you plan to do after you graduate, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, that is the hardest question that anyone could ever ask me. Okay, so, I thought when I started out, I was like, maybe I'll study forensic anthropology, or maybe I'll go to a museum. And then now I'm like, oh, I do still love like studying bones, but I also really love studying food. And then it's so hard. There was last year, I got it in my head that I was gonna apply for a MD, PhD, and become a forensic pathologist and have like forensic anthropology background, because there's not a lot of jobs for those, but there is for forensic pathologists, and you make a lot of money. And I was like, that sounds crazy, and I'll be like 50 when I graduate, but I think I can do it. And now this year, I'm in person, and I can kind of like connect better in classes and take different kinds of classes. I'm like, oh, maybe I do want to be an archaeologist. Maybe I want to see what people ate. Or maybe I want to be a paleopathologist and see find out the nutrition in people's bones, or like. And then sometimes I'm just like, maybe I just want to work in TV or film and like make documentaries about food, or an ethnography of restaurant workers, and I just want to do everything. Plus, like, doing a second life, I'm like, oh, I can do everything. I'm proving it to myself right now. So I don't know. one or all of those things I'm gonna do. I think I found a way that I can connect like bones in food or like artifacts in food. So hopefully I can do that and still get experience in the film industry. You know?